Good day to you. Vevor sells many tools for many things, and they sent me one of their anvils to check out, so here's the plan. We're going to quickly put it under the microscope, compare its rebound to other anvils, then forge a blade to shape before offering pros, cons, and a final opinion on this inexpensive anvil. Here are the specs. Vevor advertises this as a 40 kilogram or 88 pound steel anvil with 2 holes in it and a face hardened to 55 HRC. You've probably noticed I'm not in my shop today. We're shooting at a friend's house, Will, and he likes to forge knives too. He already has an anvil, but he has more space than I do to test out a second. You can see this is sort of that Acasio anvil that you find in other places. I think different companies put their brand name on it and sell it. In this case, it was Vevor, and that's fine. You got to buy it somewhere. There's a square hardy hole on one side and a round hole on the other that doesn't look very usable as a Pritchell hole, but each one lines up with mounting lines underneath. They're each an inch in diameter. Now you can see we found a defect in the casting on the front foot. I doubt it'll significantly affect the performance, but who knows. We're going to smooth out this casting line here on the front horn, and then we're going to dress the sides. Will prefers to maintain the edges a bit sharp. Here's a hardy tool from my shop. It doesn't quite fit. Upon inspection, we find some slag from the casting that has to be chiseled out. Now, the fit with my tool is not going to be precise, but I shaped this tool for the hardy hole in my own anvil. A little duct tape around there would probably snug it up. There's some debate as to what rebound on an anvil actually means. It seems reasonable to me to associate it with efficiency or how much of your work is transferred into the piece as opposed to absorbed by the anvil. Perhaps that's a function of the anvil's mass and hardness. I don't really know. At any rate, everyone wants to know. So here I'm comparing my baby rhino, which sits on a horse stall mat, and we took the average of 5 bounces, to a Vulcan anvil, which is what I used to forge on, and about the size of our new Vevor anvil. The first two came in at 67%. I think the baby rhino could have done a little better if it weren't on horse stall mat, which is soft and something I do to reduce the ringing. At any rate, the Vevor is going to come in at an average of about 60% rebound, less than the other two. Something to think about. Checking hardness. All I have is these HRC files. The 55 file digs in very convincingly, and the 50 mostly skates. I think this is sort of in the low 50s. Advertised at 55, so... Flatness. Now, the face is pristine. It was very well machined, very flat, very uniform. In all dimensions, I would say this is a very convincingly nice face for this anvil. By the way, we're checking this after forging 2 knives to look for dimples. But how's it forged, Steve? Well, we're going to get to that. But first, a few things you have to know about forging. Number one, Will didn't want to bolt this down in his shop yet for several reasons. So until we figure out how to rig it up with these concrete bags, it does a lot of jumping. You're just going to have to get used to it. The first half is a lot of jumping. Next, the forge we're using is having a bad day, and it sputters unless we use an oxidizing flame, and all we have is this little rinky-dink brush, which doesn't do much compared to the butcher block brush that I normally use, but I don't have it with us, so trying to brush this scale just is a little bit futile. All right, let's get on to forging a knife. Here we go. I'm going to show every single hammer blow on this knife as we forge it to shape. I'm historically not well practiced at forging to shape, but we're going to give it our best on this Vevor anvil. In the upper left corner, I'm going to speed up footage of Will forging a blade out of a half-round file. There's a lot of hard swinging with the 4-pound hammer up there. He did not go easy on the anvil. Right there, I threw a big blow right on the corner of the anvil. We'll round it off later. It's a good reason to bolt your anvil down so you don't have a moving target. When Vevor contacted me, they wanted me to start like with a smaller anvil, and I asked them if I couldn't just move up to the 88 pound, and they agreed. And that's sort of my recommendation for knife making in general. Like the heaviest anvil you can afford is probably where you should start. You know, you don't want to hamstring yourself by spending all your money on your anvil, but at the same time, it's pretty crucial. And I don't know that I would recommend, if it can be helped, starting at less than 80 to 90 pounds. I mean, I started on a railroad track. You know, you do what you got to do. But to the extent that you can save money and get a higher weight anvil, I think that's what I would do. Come in as heavy as you can. The radius on this horn is a little bit wide for knife making, in my opinion. You know, for me personally, maybe. I wish it were narrower. I wish the radius was a little bit smaller, especially right there at the tip. All right, it's being forged with a taper in both directions from the midpoint. So the tang is tapered, and then as you move towards the tip, it's also tapered. So there's just a lot of tippy tapping here and there to make sure everything is straight all the way down the blade. If you look down the spine, everything is straight, and you have to flip it over and look down the belly from the butt of the handle all the way down the edge, make sure that's straight as too, and there's no twisting. So, you know, the last 30 minutes here is tippy tapping and straightening and flattening and all right, dudes, that took a little bit longer than I would like to admit, but I think it turned out pretty good.
Oh, it's good.
How did our anvil hold up? Well, we already know the face stayed flat, but it wasn't without some dings. I put a big old ding on the side, and then Will put a few cross-peen shots at full swing on the face. It's not totally unexpected, guys. Here's a look at my $800 anvil after about 5 years of use. We can doctor up the side of the anvil here by putting a maybe 3/16 inch radius on it. No sweat. In the future, you know, bolting this down will help keep more errant blows from occurring. All right, let's get this knife quenched. We'll finish it up on the grinder and such. Then we'll review some pros and cons of the Vevor anvil, and I'll give you my final thoughts. All right, time for the old P-Pros and P-Cons here. We'll start with the cons. First, there are some problems with the casting. I'm not sure they affect the function of the anvil as long as we received all 88 pounds of it. It does not appear to be a 55 HRC as advertised product, which otherwise would have made this anvil like the steel of the century. The rounded horn should be narrower at the tip for knife making in my opinion, but it's still a useful horn. You know, this Pritchell hole seems a little bit unusual to me. I guess a holdfast would still fit in there and work okay. I don't know about other functions really, but the main thing is that it interrupts the edge of the anvil there where I do beveling, and so, you know, I'm not a big fan of that. Pros, the 52-ish HRC, you know, I think it's a pro too. It's harder than many anvils in this price range and very usable. I enjoyed forging on it. I couldn't tell a difference from the Vulcan that I used to forge on, which is harder. We really whacked on this thing and there's no dimpling. You know, it's true that higher quality anvils tend to start at 55 HRC and go up from there, but they also cost multiples more than this. Are you guys surprised I listed Rebound as a pro? Look, it's not great, that's the truth, but it did better than other anvils I've seen in this price range, so I was expecting way less. This actually surprised me to the upside. I really like the pattern or form of this anvil. It's really nice. It's got a double horn. The horn to the left, square horn, gets much narrower than the square horn on my current anvil, which I really like. The rounded horn to the right, it doesn't get as narrow as I would like, but it's still a very nice horn. The wide face is one of my favorite things about this anvil. It's got a very nice, wide, usable, striking face. Will loved that. He kept commenting on it, and I think it's great. Price is definitely a P-row here. It's just a good deal in my opinion. The minimum size and HRC requirements I would put on a starter blade making anvil are here. It's affordable. Vevor runs promotions from time to time. So when this video launches, I think there's an extra 5% off coupon putting this at $180, you know? Basically, I think it's a really good starting anvil. It's got some quality issues with the casting. I'm not sure what the Pritchell hole's about. The HRC is not quite as hard as advertised, but it checks all the boxes for a beginner anvil. You know, it's not a great anvil. It's just a great for the money anvil. And so I'm not sure what else you'd be looking for in a starting anvil. If, you know, they don't want $300, they don't want $250 or $600. They want $190. If they had had something like this 10 years ago when I started, I would have bought it and been happy with it for years. So you know, I think it's a good deal. All right, I'm going to show you the final knife. You guys tell me what you think and have a good one.